Hey everyone, this is acyuta-bhava from Nightlight Astrology, and today I'm going to take a little bit of time to talk about a horary chart that I did recently, and some of the issues around fate and free will that come up with horary in general, or astrology in general, really. I've noticed that a lot of people lately, through both my social media feeds and my YouTube channel and stuff like that, have just been wondering about whether or not we have free will at all, which I think is really kind of peculiar. I mean, I get it. I get why people could think that, especially when studying ancient astrology, horary astrology, which tend to be more predictive. But in my opinion, what I'll present today through this little horary example is that um, divinatory arts like tarot, like astrology, like the I Ching, um, that they speak to us about possibilities and they offer us guidance for how to make choices, as well as often predicting things very specifically. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why that is the case after looking at this demo horary for the day. Now, I should also remind all of you guys that I am in between spaces right now. Someone said, I feel bad for you because you're a Cancer and you look displaced. And I got a smile out of that. I was like, I'm really excited to move because Minnesota, where we're moving, is that's where I grew up. I have a lot of friends there, and I love the Midwest. So yeah, excited to go back. We're renting a little bit in the Midwest to see how it goes. But at any rate, I'm digressing here. You can't see much but a wall behind me at the moment. So it's going to take a while before I get like a nice setup in the new place that we're renting. So in the meantime, I apologize for the poor audio video quality and stuff like that. Be fixed soon. All right, so here's the horary chart for today. This one comes with permission from one of my clients. As always, thank you for giving your permission. We all learn a lot because people, are willing to volunteer when, especially when I get one right. It's really nice when a client will say, "Yeah, sure, share it." I really love that because then it can be used as a teaching example. So horary charts, what are they if you've never heard of it before? The chart is cast for the moment that a question is asked. The moment that I receive a question from someone, I cast a birth chart for that moment, and the chart is read in order to answer a question that's being asked. This question was, will he come back to me? So in this question, the querent is the person asking the question, and then there's the quesitive, the thing being asked about. And the querent is going to always be represented by the ascendant. So this woman is going to get Jupiter, the ascendant ruler, with the ascendant being in Sagittarius. Now, I was trained in horary on quadrant-based houses, so I use Regiomontanus for horary, but I use whole sign when I'm doing natal work, which is more from the Hellenistic era. Anyway, just because people always ask me about that. Now, the moon can also co-signify the querent, person asking the question. And then we need to look at the seventh house ruler in order to understand who the spouse or partner or significant other is. In this case, that's Mercury. Gemini is on the seventh house cusp. So what we need to see is, will he come back to me? Person's asking if their partner, after they've separated, will come back and want to get together. Now, in this question, she's also suspicious about whether or not it would be the right thing to do to get back together. So keep that in mind because this is going to come back around to our question of fate and free will. So we can see that the moon has not too long ago separated from a trine with Mercury, and the moon is currently in its fall in the 12th house. Perhaps signaling some level of self-destructiveness or grief or loss, and also the actual separation of the aspect shows that the two of them have come apart recently. Now, what's so interesting is that the very next aspect that's going to happen from Mercury is an opposition to Jupiter. And so the signifiers of our querent, the woman asking the question, and of her boyfriend are coming back together through an opposition. Now, this would seem then to suggest that that aspect is giving us the picture of an opportunity to get back together. Is it an inevitability? That becomes the question, maybe philosophically. We'll talk about that later. Because they're coming together through an opposition, in horary, you'll often hear horary practitioners say, if the matter is going to perfect by an opposition, better were it never done at all. The opposition isn't an aspect that typically means that something will come together in a way that is harmonious, and not that everything in life comes together without stress or challenge, but the opposition in particular usually says, yeah, there'll be an opportunity, but probably too stressful and too much conflict for it to be worth it. Okay, so yeah, he will come back. Then there's the matter of how long. To do that, we basically take a symbolic measurement of time. And timing in horary is not always accurate. It's not always science. You can just say, yes, he's going to come back. Very short amount of degrees, relatively soon. A long amount of degrees, relatively long. And then how long? Usually what you're going to do is use a symbolic number of units in order to measure how long it takes. For example, Mercury at 1742 and Jupiter at 2030, they're just a little under 3 degrees apart. And so maybe 2.5 degrees would be the best, 2 to 2.5 degrees, or you could be a little bit broader and say 2 to 3 degrees between then 2 and 3 units of time, or 2 and 2.5 units of time. You always look by means of the planet that's making the application. How many units is it away from making the perfect aspect to whatever it's aspecting in the context of the question? And then that becomes a symbolic unit of time. So here, 2 to 2.5, maybe broadly speaking, 2 to 3. And then within the context of the question, what makes more sense? 2 to 3 hours, 2 to 3 days, 2 to 3 weeks, 2 to 3 months, 2 to 3 years. 2 to 3 years seems pretty long. 2 to 3 days, weeks, or months seems most appropriate. There's a more elaborate way of breaking it down from there that I won't go into. But in this case, I said 2 to 3 weeks or months would be my guess. So then what we want to do is, obviously, yes, he'll reach out, he'll come back within 2 to 3 units of time, weeks or months. But this opportunity is coming through an opposition, which means I might advise the client, it may not be worth it. It may be more trouble than it's worth. The other thing here, which is really interesting, is that Mercury in Cancer is in the exaltation of Jupiter. So in the language of horary that I learned from one of my instructors, John Frawley, who has some really great horary material out there, we'd say that Mercury exalts Jupiter. Mercury in Cancer, which is Jupiter's exaltation, is very favorably disposed toward Jupiter. So we'd say Mercury exalts Jupiter. So if Mercury is coming to make an aspect with Jupiter, and Mercury is the boyfriend, and Mercury exalts Jupiter, then not only will he come back, but he'll come back with, maybe that kind of like, oh my God, I don't know why I ever left you. I mean, you're so amazing, kind of worshiping her. So be careful, because that kind of flattery, that over-the-top idealism that sometimes an exaltation can imply, is not always entirely realistic. What goes up must come down. Exaltations often imply something that's a heightened peak state of feeling or sentiment, and not always to last forever. You always have to be careful of things being a little exaggerated. Well, with this information, remember the querent wasn't just asking, will he come back? It was, will he come back, and would it be worthwhile? And so the information was, yes, he will come back with a kind of probably really strong, intense desire for you, and it may be more trouble than it's worth. You'll notice that Jupiter in the sign of Capricorn has no great affinity for Mercury. So at any rate, that was the judgment. Now, so it turned out that that was late July, just a couple of days ago. He reached out and wants to get back together. So that was a successful horary, and also his sentiments were very much in line with, his feeling was very elated, like just the way that the chart described. But she wrote in the email to me, kind of going through everything that had happened and how they had connected again and what his feelings were and so forth, that the horary was making her realize that she is going to exercise caution and not most likely not get together. So she's going to talk to him or something like that. Now, from the standpoint of horary astrology and from the standpoint of divination, I see this all the time, where our consciousness matters so much and our choices matter so much. If we ask the oracle a question, asking for advice in order to consciously use our agency, our free will, then the oracle often honors that and gives us some element of what's going to happen, but specifically so that we, prepared, can make the best choices. So in this case, yeah, he's going to reach out with a lot of emotion over the top, and you may not have as much feeling for him, and it may be more trouble than it's worth. That's some straight up cosmic truth. You know what I mean? Like do with it what you will. But why would the oracle give such advice? Why would the oracle give such advice if there wasn't a chance that we could make a slightly different choice, a different decision? Free will is something that in the yogic tradition has to be earned. We have free will, it's just a matter of how free it is. When we are locked into habituated, patterns, oftentimes the patterns are rooted in a desire for happiness that is absolutely it's fundamental to who we are, as spiritual beings, that we seek out happiness. In Bhakti Yoga, we say that's natural. It's natural that you would search for, happiness. It's natural that we would search for happiness. Sorry to pause for a second. But oftentimes, because our world, we don't have as many elders, so many institutions that are designed to teach us spiritual, to live spiritually, they often fail us, so they let us down. We don't always know how to manage that impulse and how to seek pleasure in healthy ways, and so we use our freedom to seek that internal happiness, we in ways that often end up hurting us. They don't last, or they leave us in pain and disillusionment and disappointment. Some of that's just natural, like life is just part of life. But when we start to question, how do I use my choice? How do I make choices in this world that there's so many energies and forces and other beings around me? How do I use my agency to make good choices and to have real happiness? Well, astrology is an absolutely amazing tool that can help us to make wiser choices. There is a karma yoga that we're all practicing. On one level, we can't really connect with real happiness unless we learn how to connect with our source, which I believe is a spiritual practice that needs a spiritual lifestyle. But on the other hand, we also have to live lives, and our spirituality has to be wed to trying to live the best life that we can live, using our free will in the best way that we can. And so oftentimes astrology is there to help us understand not only what kind of karma is blossoming, but specifically when things come, there are like little pieces of advice, built into these readings, like do this, be careful of this, it might not be worth it. He's going to come at you with a ton of feelings, be careful. Sometimes we aren't going to be able to say no. Some horaries give advice, and they give advice knowing that that something is likely to occur. Like this person could very well just get back together with someone who may not be the best for them. That could happen, but why would the oracle waste its time? You know, I think it's because again, it's like even if you get back together with the ex and it turns out bad, and you go, oh, I should have listened to the oracle. At least in hindsight that something was there guiding you, encouraging you, believing in you, and reminding you that, hey, you do have choice here. You can make a change. I think this is a common thing that I see, a lot, because I talk to people all the time who, have to turn their life around in one way or another, and you don't do so unless you start reflecting on your choices and asking for guidance and the universe provides that guidance when we ask for it, and it does so because it respects our agency and our free will. So anyway, I wanted to share this horary with you guys because it's a great example of a horary that was both predictive, shows an element of karma at work that can't be avoided. That was, this guy's coming back, but also look, you have a choice in the matter. Choose wisely, and that is, it's. I think it's frustrating for us to think, well, it's got to be fate, it's got to be free will, but no, in divination, there's, we live in an environment, a karmic environment that's very much alive. Sure, it's rooted in laws, it's rooted in the momentum of previous choices and patterns and habits that you can't just change instantly, but those laws they're not impersonal. You know what I mean? They're rooted in the interaction of sentient beings and sentient life, and the laws are there to help orchestrate choices. So, in a sense, karma and fate is nothing more than the outcome of choices. So that interaction is maybe most alive in horary astrology, which has helped me to also realize in natal astrology that your birth chart is very similar. Like your birth chart is a field of karma, but we are not only receiving the fruits of that karma in this lifetime, some of which can't be avoided, but we're also making choices within that field. No better examples than in horary that have helped really like illuminate that concept for me. So hopefully it does for you too. If you find this kind of stuff interesting, I encourage you to check out my new upcoming course, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. It's a one-year course, optional certification track that you can go on and be certified at the end and take a test if you want to. We have 30 classes on the year, 2 to 3 hours each, plus 12 guest speakers. It starts on Saturdays in November. I offer 2 of these programs a year. My last one started in June. Next one starts in November. You can check it out on my website, nightlightastrology.com, under the courses page. And we have need-based tuition for those who are struggling due to COVID or anything else. And we also have an early bird rate that's in effect right now and a payment plan if you need one as well. So check it out. Let me know if you have any questions about the program. I'm happy to answer. You can email me info@nightlightastrology.com. My next horary course begins next June 2021. So next horary is a ways away. But if you like this kind of stuff and you want to learn more about the philosophy of fate, karma, the ancient metaphysics of astrology, and how to read birth charts, check it out. You'll probably really enjoy it. In the meantime, I hope to be providing more content in the weeks to come with chart examples, but right now everything's sort of up in the air because of the move. So, but we'll have something new will be coming up. Anyway, hope you guys have a great weekend. Take it easy. Bye.